Welcome to The Bridge, from surviving to thriving in medical school, a medical student podcast on success and belonging at UCSF. This series explores how medical students succeed and thrive in medical school through important relationships, academic support, well-being, and career exploration. I'm your host, Alvin Gwonga, a second year, or should I say third year now, medical student at UCSF. Thank you for joining us. All students need mentors to thrive and succeed in medical school. Today's episode examines successful mentoring relationships through creating a mentorship team, identifying qualities of a good mentor-mentee relationship, and making the most of a mentoring conversation. I would like to introduce two special guests in this episode. Ernesto Rojas is an MSDP medical student in the UCSF School of Medicine, and Dr. Lucy Ogbu-Nwobodo is an assistant professor of clinical psychiatry and our director of the postbaccalaureate program in the UCSF School of Medicine. Ernesto and Lucy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
To start us off today, I have a couple of questions for the both of you. The first is, what is one thing that you would like our listeners to know about you? Starting with you, Ernesto, and then Lucy.
Great. Thank you so much. So I'm Ernesto. I use he, him pronouns. I'm an immigrant from Honduras, and I was the first in my family to attend college. And I think this really links well into the subject of today because it's only through the mentoring networks that I was able to build that I received the insights to make it to UCSF and do my MD PhD program.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here with you all. I'm Lucy Ogbu-Nwobodo, and I really appreciate this opportunity because mentorship is a huge part of my passion, but also part of how I also came to be. Like Ernesto, I'm also an immigrant from Nigeria, and much of my career trajectory and academic experience has been bolstered by the support of mentors who along the way have supported my journey. And I see it as an imperative for me to be able to pass on what has been bestowed upon me and to ensure that students, particularly those from non-traditional background, historically excluded communities, are able to have the path in front of them demystified and that we can ensure their success because it can be really difficult to navigate this journey without that type of mentorship and support that got us here where we are today.
Thank you for your introductions. My next question for both of you is, what is something in the School of Medicine that you find gives you joy?
I would say that for myself, one of the things that I really am proud and enjoy doing, similar to Lucy, is actually the role I have as the Chief Information Officer for the Latino Medical Student Association in the Western region. And I find this to really bring me joy because it allows me to serve communities who have been historically excluded from medicine, and especially in California, where we have such a large Latinx population, that I can be part of this group of students who are going to be serving these communities. And it also has actually allowed me to see medical students transition from being early students in their first year all the way to graduating. As an MD PhD student, I can now see students who have gone through the whole program and come out to be incredible physicians ready to take on the challenges of medicine. And I feel really lucky to have the space to see students grow and be part of their journey as well.
That's wonderful.
I love that. One of the things that I'm very passionate about and that gives me a lot of joy is my appreciation of the brilliance of our learners. I'm constantly in awe and inspired as a faculty member about the brilliance that the students bring. And to be honest, I appreciate their indignance against the status quo and the ways that things have sometimes been entrenched in our systems. I believe that our students and our learners challenge us to grow, challenge us to think about things from a different lens. And so I think that's a huge part of my continual passion and interest because it keeps me engaged, it keeps me inspired. When we think about teaching and faculty relationships, we think about a one direction, unidirectional type of thing. But for me, it's very bidirectional. I learn as much as I'm able to impart on the learners. And I think that's a very special UCSF recipe.
Thank you. I love hearing those perspectives. Ernesto, I have a first question for you. And this is a question that tries to gauge at the difference between a mentor, a sponsor, and an advocate. How do each play a unique role in medical students' career development?
So the first one is a mentor. And this is someone who I would describe as a person who is in your same career path, in some kind of position that you would like to be interested in or pursuing, or just that piques your interest. And I think this person is really someone who can help guide you where to go to make it to, a similar position as they are. So this is someone who can guide you in their experience. When I was early in college, I started to learn about sponsors. And these are folks who actually use their positionality, their clout, their place in the world to back up your work. So this is someone who uses some of their own status to actually help you get ahead. And many times they may be the same person as your mentor, but sometimes they may not be related to your mentor. So for example, when I've thought about sponsors, this may be people who I work with in my lab, but it actually might be people outside of my lab who I don't have one-on-one always conversations, but they are people who have seen me present and actually are like, oh, this person might be able to do really well with this opportunity. Let me sponsor them and help them make sure that other folks are seeing them as well. And this ties really well into the advocate, who is someone who's looking out for you even when you're not there. I did not know how many people were actually thinking about me when I'm not there. And it's a really wonderful thing to hear. As you've already heard of Lucy, right? The enjoyment of working with other students and seeing their energizing ability and then to that energize you is a really powerful tool to then allow an advocate to actually help you get ahead when you're not there by either speaking up about opportunities that you might fit, maybe by making sure that you're aware of certain key steps that you're looking out for. And one of the important things about this distinction is that it's not a cut and dry, one person is a mentor, one person is a sponsor. Ideally, it'd be great to have all of these things in one person, but that's just not the reality of how humans work. So you really have to try to find folks who meet some of those qualities and remember which one of those roles they might be taking on at a certain moment.
That's a really good perspective. You hear mentor and you assume that that's just an all-encompassing term for an advocate, a sponsor, and a mentor. I appreciate that. That doesn't have to be the same person that fits that role. Can you talk more about the practical steps that medical students might take to identify potential mentors, potential sponsors, and potential advocates, both inside their institution and out of it?
One of the parts is first identifying by listening to this podcast. That's one of the ways you'll start to try to build some of that knowledge base beforehand. But this does take pre-work. So one of the pieces of pre-work that is helpful is figuring out what your needs and wants are from any professional or personal aspect. So for me, sometimes that's navigating academics. What does the academic institution look like? Sometimes it's what does my work look like in my research as an MD PhD student? I do a lot of research. And so sometimes that is just about, well, in my work that I'm doing day to day, how do I actually do this next thing? Or sometimes in medicine, the logistics of being in a hospital system and, as we've heard before, the demystifying of that process. So that is kind of the pre-work of trying to just start to identify what your needs are. And then it's turning your attention to folks that you've met, either in classes, in conferences, on the wards, that might be insightful. And this is where you can start to lean on the fact that you actually, as a medical student, have a network of folks who must have helped, get to medical school. We don't do this completely in a vacuum. And so leaning on those connections is really helpful. And that's where now approaching the people is going to be the next step. The simpler, the better. I usually try to ask for one simple ask from someone. Could I pick your brain about this X topic? Or can I hear about your career trajectory and how you ended up in the position you're in? Or feedback about your presentation you gave. Hey, I just gave this presentation and I really value your input. Can you give me a little bit of feedback about how this went so that I can grow and learn? All of those are ways to approach one simple ask. I was once told this phrase that people only listen to their favorite radio station, WIIFM. That's what's in it for me. And so, people love to talk about their own journeys themselves. And that's not a problem, but you can actually use that to learn from their experience. And so usually I find that 30 minutes is a good amount of time to ask for someone's space. And then if they do not reply, I usually will reach out to them again in 3 to 7 days. I tell my mentees all the time, please send me another email because sometimes it just gets lost. Something comes up, but we really do want to be good mentors, be good advocates and sponsors. And one of the great things is because of that mentorship network that many of us have started to build, you can always ask, who do you think that you know might be helpful for me to talk to? And for all of us, we build these connections in medical school with our medical school classmates who end up being faculty members. And I'm sure Lucy has the same experience of having friends who are now faculty members with her. And so that is really, really important. And I would say the last thing is that in mentorship network and building these networks, this is a relationship that's built over time. And so it won't be that this person is your mentor immediately that first time. It might have to require a couple steps. And so approaching it, the first step is just to ask that simple request and then see how that continues.
That's really helpful. It's really hard sometimes to tease out what you need from a mentor. We know we need mentors and we know that we need their help in order to succeed. I've found that even just telling someone, to be very honest, I know that I want to be part of this path. How do I even approach this to begin with has been at least a good step from my perspective. My next question is for Lucy. Can you talk a little bit about the strategies that you recommend for identifying and building a mentorship team that truly supports one's career and personal growth in medicine?
Yeah, thank you for that question. One of the things I tell my mentees and people that I support is that what you need is going to evolve over time. Your mentorship team, your sponsorship team as a MS1 will likely evolve as an MS4 or in your case, MS18. There's going to be evolving needs as a resident, as a fellow, as an early career faculty, just all of these things. So have that growth mindset that your needs are going to evolve and your team will evolve. And it's actually okay to have that happen. People feel really afraid to advance or modify who they're working with as their interests and their needs also change. That's the first starting point, having that intro lens that, okay, what I need now will likely be adapted. And one of the things that I think is just at a very local level, like because you're in a medical school, you're already in a very structured environment with a captive audience of faculty, staff, classmates, peers, near peers that are already in the same system. And for many of us, it's really hard to be vulnerable, to ask for help or to ask for what we don't even know we need. And I think starting with the people that you're around, like if there's somebody 1 or 2 years ahead of you, just talking about the things that you're interested in to see what may come up from that conversation. They could say, like Ernesto, I'm part of LMSA. I want you to come and join me, buddy. Let's go to the regional conference that's happening next spring together. Now you're suddenly being exposed to a whole different community of people that you would not have otherwise had. And that came from someone in the same medical school as you. So when we think about mentorship, it's not just faculty or those who are 15, 17 years ahead of you. There are folks in your same class, in your same program, really close to where you are, who can actually be part of that journey and learning from what they have done and the mistakes that they have made that you can bypass because now you have them on your team like, oh no, girl, I don't recommend that. All of these things are such formative experiences. And so it's not always this big, ambitious thing of like, let's go out there and find a Nobel laureate that's going to be my mentor, right? Yeah. Charity begins at home. It starts local. And you yourself will be a mentor to somebody coming in behind you who will now be like, LMSA, tell me more about that. SNMA, I want to learn more. Sometimes what you need is not always tangible, but if you're even able to just share with some people just who you are, your background. Like, Nessa said, I'm first generation, I'm an immigrant. These types of identities and experiences help us connect with others who may be able to shed some insight as to the challenges that one might be experiencing because of those identities. You could say something like, I moved to San Francisco from the Midwest, and I don't really have a social network here. The professional and the personal are quite integrated, in my opinion. It's really hard to fully separate them. And when people can support you as a person, your career, your academic is also enhanced. So you may not need a research project as an MS1 today, but you may need to know who to connect with socially. When you're in that long holiday, you don't get to go home anymore like you would when you were in undergrad. Who are you going to spend Thanksgiving with? Who are you going to be there with for the Christmas holidays with? All of these things allow you to feel connected to your purpose and help enhance the work that you're doing. This is a very dynamic process. And think about it as like you can gain a lot just from where you already are. And then, of course, there are others who are not quite in the same local network that you can connect with. And part of that is what I call having a lot of courage to reach out to people who you don't know. Like Anersa said earlier, people love talking about themselves, and flattery goes a long way. Right? Most people are like, thank you. Continue, please. Like they really want to hear how their work is touching people. And some of the best relationships I've made in my mentorship journey came from blind emails that I was terrified would get spammed. Nobody would even resonate with it. But if there was something about that person's work, maybe it was a presentation that I saw, maybe it was an article that we read in school that I was like, oh, corresponding author is like listed here. Let me reach out and just share my interests. And having the courage to know that, you know what, you are valued and you are worthy, and it's okay for you to reach out. Like there's no crime in it. We get into our own head and we talk ourselves out of these experiences. And I think it's important to have that faith that, you know what, people do want to hear from you. And it's important for you to know that because one day that's going to be you. People are going to be coming to support you as well. And if you are able to identify folks, whether it's your peer, whether it's someone that you reached out to that's not even in your local network, it's important to really know that this is a bi-directional relationship. You're not there to be the recipient of all of the wisdom and you're just soaking it in and nothing is asked of you, right? I think it's really important to know that there's a lot to be asked of you as a mentee, that it's going to be important to be able to maintain and sustain that relationship. No one is going to do this in a one-directional kind of way. You need to be able to know that you have to show up prepared, you have to be accountable, and you have to know that you're going to put in sometimes more work early on as the mentee. And over time, that could be recalibrated, but there's going to be times when all of the early scheduling, all those things will come from you. And over time, as they get to know you, that may stabilize. I'll stop there for now, as I'm sure we're going to have other ways to expound more on this element.
Thank you, Lucy. I think that's very salient, especially what you said about reaching out to the people that are already around you first. I think that we forget the power that we have as peers to connect each other to resources and to really support each other. When I was in college, a mentor of mine really spoke to this. You can have multiple layers of mentorship in your life. Your peer mentors, mentors that are further along in their careers, mentors that are in the middle of their careers. And also what you said about vulnerability too. You have to share about yourself. You have to share about your values in order for people to connect to you, because like Ernesto talked about later, those sponsors and those advocates, if they don't know who you are, they won't be able to advocate for you in spaces when you're not present. So that's really important. And the point you made about being the mentee and being willing to invest a little bit more in the front end in that mentorship relationship, because if you don't put in that work, it's going to be hard to maintain the relationship. And it makes me think a little bit about this next question I have for you, Ernesto, of what you think students can do to build their relationships with their mentors and maintain effective relationships with either their mentors or mentorship team. What are the strategies that you've personally found to be successful in your career?
When thinking about building the relationship, it might take a little bit more work at the beginning. And I think agendas are really helpful. Not only are they helpful for you to orient, what are the things that I'd like to get out of this conversation? They may be a bigger open-ended question about, I don't know how to think about this next thing. These are some of the ways I'm thinking about it. What are your perspectives? It's helpful to have that question list, that agenda, because it also allows you to know how much can we get through in this first meeting versus maybe we can save for another meeting or as we build up the relationship. And it also makes sure that I personally don't miss anything because I tend to forget when we're sitting here chatting, even here, things come up and, I might forget. And these agendas are really helpful for maintaining that importance of what you want to get out of it. I think the follow-up is so important. This is, I think, where most relationships will kind of fizzle away. You meet with someone once, you'd forget that you can check in on them. So then you just don't reach out again for 2 years. And then it feels harder to reach out again. A way to help with that is keeping track of the folks who are in my network in some searchable way of just a list of folks who I've talked to and the general idea of the things I've talked about. And like I said, mentors love to mentor. We get as much out of it as you do. And so sometimes it might be your responsibility to keep them in the loop. So every quarter, I tend to send a message to mentors and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know right now I'm about to finish my PhD. I'm looking for this. Or I really appreciated our conversation a few months ago. I've been thinking about it and have actually implemented this. And that really shows that you value their input and allows them to make sure that you are also part of their relationship. And again, this is also true if you have near peer mentors, because it's great to check in with folks who are near your career path, see how they're doing, see how their perspective changes over time. So if you talk to an MS4 in the beginning of the year versus the end of the year, you might see different perspective changes, which is helpful for you to have awareness about that just as much as, when you're talking to a faculty member. And so I find that when we're thinking about the strategies to maintain these relationships, it's really about consistency, following up, and then seeing the ways that that has impacted on you. And that self-reflection will really show how much you're getting out of these relationships.
Thank you, Ernesto. I appreciate that. As you were speaking, I was just thinking about the list of mentors that I need to follow up on. Thank you for this reminder for myself too, to stay accountable and to reach out to my mentors and remember that, again, it is a bidirectional relationship. It's not just me gaining something out of the relationship. It's also them as well.
And I want to say that it's never too late. So I love getting a message from a student who is now in medical school. I went to a conference and they came up to me and they were like, hey, remember me? And I was like, no, because you were on Zoom and you look so different in person. But we had a wonderful relationship a year or two before, and now he's in medical school. And that is one of the best feelings that we have, especially in academics, where a lot of what we're doing here is training the next generation of leaders. And wow, what a joy it is to see the transformation that students have. And there's nothing that I think keeps us here more than that.
No, that's absolutely beautiful. In your experience, what action items would you recommend for students that are actively trying to engage with their mentorship team in order to achieve their academic and professional goals?
Follow-up is so key. And it's the thing that I will be honest, I also forget to do. And it may be the goal of doing this every quarter, but it turns out to be maybe once a year. But that follow-up is so, so important because it makes sure that you are keeping them in the front of your mind and they're keeping you in the front of their mind and showing that you can lean on them when they actively work with you. One of the things that has been helpful is always having a list of what you've done since last time you've met. One of the ways to do this is with a CV or a resume that you're maintaining and updating. I always like to let my mentors know, what have I been up to since we last chatted? What rewards, what conferences, what new ideas do I have for my future career plans? And this also lets you reflect on the goals and the needs that you have. And Lucy said this beautifully, which is that our mentorship networks change over time and our needs change over time. And that is okay, but maintaining that communication to those mentors is so important because now they can think about you as a future resident, right? What residency program directors do I know? Versus, hey, you need a faculty job. What faculty do I know? And maybe you want to change into industry or non-academic work. Who do I know in government? Who do I know in biotech? And all of this will change, and that's expected and actually really helpful when we know that as mentors. And so making sure that you're reflecting on that and communicating to them. And I think one of the last things that it was really important for me is linking together the things that folks tell me. So the reflection on things that were brought up from one mentor that may be different than a different mentor. And we've been talking about really successful mentorship networks and things that mentors tell us that are really helpful and change our perspective. And I've got to say, sometimes mentors are not perfect. They are just as human as you and I, and they make mistakes, so they may make a suggestion that is not that helpful to you. And when those things come up, working through that with trusted friends like your peer mentors, working through that with other mentors and trying to reflect on, hey, this suggestion was made to me, and I don't know if it's really right for me. And that's okay. And having to really be okay with saying, this person knows me. They don't know all of me. They don't know all the thoughts in my head. And that's okay that I can say, well, let me take that suggestion, really deeply reflect on it. And if it's not actually something that I want to do, or it's not something that really jives with my values, that's okay. And being okay with accepting what's helpful and letting go of what's not. And I think that's really important to think about as well when thinking about these relationships in the mentor-mentor and mentor-mentee relationships.
That's a good point. And I think a big part of it is really making sure that you know yourself as you are engaging with your mentors and you have a sense of who you are, what your values are, and what you need from them, because I think it can be so easy to be swayed. I remember when I was writing my personal statement for medical school, I learned that lesson really quickly. You send it to too many people, and then next thing you know, you have very different suggestions about how to approach your narrative and your story. And you're like, oh my God, these really amazing people who are already in their careers. Do I have to take all the suggestions? And it was at the end, one of my mentors, I appreciate her for saying, she's like, Alvine, these are suggestions. You don't have to take everything to heart. You can take what you need and leave what you don't need to build your narrative. So I appreciate that. My next question is for you, Lucy. Especially as students are evaluating what really makes good mentor-mentee relationships, from your experience, what qualities do you think make for a strong and a mutually beneficial mentor-mentee relationship? And how can mentees identify these qualities when choosing a mentor? What are some of the red flags to watch out for when they're finding them?
This is a very complex and important question. And I think about this as, what are qualities that I look for in anyone that I'm engaging with? There's some basic human requirements that I think foster positive engagement. I think what makes a strong and mutually beneficial mentee-mentor relationship is one that's grounded in a sense of purpose. What brings us together? Why are we in this relationship? And that could be because we want to support each other. We want to get to know each other. It could be because we're building on a specific initiative or a project. But having a shared sense of purpose in what we're doing in this relationship is so important, because it then allows you to continue building on that purpose as you're executing on different things. And I think just being able to have mutual respect for each other. As a mentor, I must respect my mentee for me to want to invest my time and energy in them. As you come to see, and as you probably already see as a medical student, your time is money. Your time is currency. Your time is invaluable. And where you spend your time is what your value is. If I don't value and respect this person, I will not invest my time and energy into them. And so I think there's a mutual respect in that you as a mentee, of course, maybe you respect your mentor and that you want to be in their circle and their space, but the mentor also respects and values you, or there's no incentive for them to be spending their very, very highly valuable time and energy in this relationship. So I think respect is at the core of a lot of these dynamics that I find to be successful. And I think also being able to be accountable to each other. A mentor should follow through on their commitments to their mentee. And if things come up whereby that might be needing to be modulated, being able to communicate that things are impacting that expectation that the mentee has. In the same breath, when you're not communicating the barriers to your ability to follow through, people fill in the blanks. So communication is so key, because if you're not able to express with your mentor, hey, Dr. So-and-so, I had a family issue come up during the holidays and I was out for a month and that deadline's supposed to send with you. This is what happened and it got in the way. But because maybe you're so afraid to share that something happened and that you didn't come through, you go to your mentor and now they're like, okay, I haven't heard them in 5 months, 6 months. Then you suddenly reappear later, and I'm left to fill in the blank as to what happened. You had a valuable reason, you had a valuable excuse of what happened, but I never knew what it was. So I'm assuming either you don't value our relationship, this is not important to you, and that can lead to fracture in relationship. So it's so important to communicate and be honest and even be vulnerable and saying, I don't know how to accomplish what you asked me to do. As I was saying yes, I was like, yeah, I could do that. Oh, lit review, I got you. Stat analysis, I can code fast, I can do R. And then you go home and you're like, holy moly, I don't know how to do any of those things. And I just said yes to it. Now I'm afraid to admit it. So even being able to say I need help, can you put me in this direction? I started and I got caught up. You have to communicate, and it goes both ways. If I have 17 deadlines, I'm on a grant deadline, and you wanted me to read over your personal statement and I didn't get to it, I can't just ghost you and say nothing about my commitment to you because I got busy. So it's just important that we communicate. And again, it's hand in hand. It's not one versus the other. And I think it's important as a mentee to have a growth mindset. It's so important that you have an open mind. Most of us think that we have an open mind until we're challenged with something that suddenly we ain't that open about. And there is a lot of wisdom that comes from those who have walked the path that you're on and who can see things that you may not be privy to or even aware or conscious about. And it can sometimes be difficult to open our minds and to accept what's being taught to us. We can get very rigid in our thinking and shut down things and not be receiving what's being imparted on us. And I see it a lot of times when we're being challenged to sometimes grow. We're being challenged and giving constructive feedback about elements that we need to work on. And we don't always want to hear that, or we take it as some type of a personal affront onto us. I tell people, what a privilege is it that someone sees you so well that they want you to grow? Criticism can feel like, oh, this is personal, but wow, you've thought about me enough that you want me to enhance and advance and transcend my current situation. When I look at it that way, it allows me to be more open, because sometimes it's all good when we're all doing great, like high five, you're awesome, you rock. I love her. She's a great mentor. Suddenly she's like, oh, I've noticed that this is an area that you need to work on. Can we try to create a plan for you? Oh, I don't like her no more. She got an attitude. She's coming at me foul. I'm good. I don't need this in my life. And then we just shut down. Versions of that, it could be way less sassy than I just did. But sometimes when we are forced upon what we need to do to grow, it's difficult to hear, especially in the first years even of our relationship. You were the all-star, doing it, publishing it, advancing in leadership and doing all these things. And suddenly you're being told that perhaps you got to do more that you thought you were supposed to be doing. And I've seen mentees take it as sometimes too personal of a feedback and then decide not to follow up with that person anymore. In the same breath, though, you need to be able to have mentors who afford grace to their mentees. We can't be putting the Mac hand down all the time. It can't be like, you don't get this done, off with your head. We need to be able to have grace because most of our mentees are learners. Most of our mentees are growing. They may not know what they don't know yet. They're going to make mistakes. And as a mentor, you have to be able to afford them growth, to grow and to make mistakes. I see that sometimes it's like, you know what? She didn't come through. I'm too busy for this. Bye. And it's like, no. Let's not write them off so fast. And sometimes it could be a mismatch for other different reasons. But some of these dynamics are really, really important for us to keep in mind. And you should no way tolerate anybody disrespecting you and making you feel not valued. Just because someone is a mentor or a sponsor does not give them the right to yell at you, to belittle you, to say oppressive comments about different parts of who you are and how you navigate the world. There are red flags that if it was coming from anybody else, you wouldn't tolerate. Don't tolerate it from a mentor. somebody else came at you that way, you'd be like, I'm not taking that. That's something for you to recalibrate and be like, okay, maybe this is not a dynamic I should be in. So yes, we have to be respectful to each other, communicate with each other, grow, and then have the ability to give grace to each other as well.
Wow, Lucy, I don't have anything to add. That was very real and so important to hear. I think especially something that really resonates with me was the part about your mentor when they have to provide constructive criticism. It is hard to hear that really from anyone, but I think you said it so well that if you've built a good relationship with someone and they're taking the time to call you in and tell you about something that you need to address or something to fix, it means they care. And a lot of us don't have people who really care about us to tell us the truth, especially in this hidden curriculum of medicine. There are so many faux pas that you can make and so many things that aren't explicit that if you don't have someone guiding you and someone who's willing to be honest with you, then we can make a lot of mistakes. And I really hope that our listeners can appreciate hearing that, because that was very, very honest, and not everyone will speak to them that way and tell them that. My next question again is for you, Lucy, and it's really about how mentees can make the most out of each of their mentorship conversations to gain valuable insights and progress towards their goals. Do you have any tips on approaching these conversations effectively?
Yeah, great question. And thank you for those kind reflections. One of the things that I tell people is that not every conversation is going to be that deep. You're going to have some very productive meetings and conversations and some less so productive meetings and conversations. But each of those touch points are processes in building a relationship. None of it is invaluable. Because you didn't leave the thing with a grant that you're going to be a co-PI on does not mean it was not a productive meeting. So I think having some grace for the fact that each time you're sharing space with somebody, you're building relational chemistry. You're building a connection with that person. They're getting to see you in your authentic space, see how you express yourself. You're getting to see them. It's like you just get to know each other. So just knowing that in general is important. But it's really helpful if you are able to come into the meeting as the mentee with some things that you want to discuss. Ernest talked about this earlier. This could be very tangible, like, hey, I'm in this class and I'm dealing with this issue with this other student, and I don't know how to go about processing this. Or I'm about to be finishing my first year of medical school, and I hear I'm supposed to do a research summer in between, or I'm supposed to do something really productive in my summer between MS1 and MS2. What should I do? Just asking those conversations. Or what books are you reading right now? What's inspiring you right now? Getting to know how people are doing. I heard that you're giving grand rounds in Iowa next month. Can you tell me a little bit more what you'll be talking about? Like, having some frame to engage with is really important. And that, as a mentee, requires, again, some work from you. You kind of have to know who you're talking to. It's important to actually research a little bit about who you're meeting and what their interests, what they've written about, what they're teaching, just what they're doing, so that you then know how to engage with them. And it doesn't have to be specialty-focused discussion, but it's good to just have a basic awareness of who we are working with so that we know then how they may be able to support us. And not every mentor of yours is going to be in your destined profession. I think people sometimes get very narrowed vision of like, I want to be a surgeon and I will only have surgeon mentors. And that's it. No, that internal medicine doctor can offer you some insight. So can the psychiatrist. So can the staff member who's not a member of a faculty, but is a staff here at UCSF. So Don't get so purist in that you're trying to align everyone in your mentorship team as part of some type of destined goal, because the experiences that we have, that we've navigated, can offer you formative insights for you to grow from, even if you're not going to be a psychiatrist. So have an open mind about who you're actually trying to engage in relationships with, because you never know what opportunities can open up to you. I'll give a couple of examples. One of my first medical school mentors was a pathologist. I came to journal club. Apparently, I was prepared in journal club, and he was impressed that I was present and engaging with the discussion, that he reached out to me and was like, let's have a meeting. When I met with him, he was like, I want to mentor you and sponsor you for a grant with me. And I'm like, I have no interest in pathology. But I was so moved by him somehow seeing me and wanting to support me, and I had an open mind. That relationship led to publications, led to my first NIH grant later on in a whole different field, which was neurosurgery. That's a whole long story. But the point of that was that this first pathology MS1 mentor of mine opened up doors and allowed me to illustrate things through our work together that I then leveraged later on towards other opportunities and towards my eventual destination. So it's really important to have an open mind. And with everything that you do, even if it's not within some structure of mentorship-mentee relationship, show up prepared and show up present, because you never know who's watching you. I have been very shocked as to the ways in which people see me in settings where I didn't know I was even being observed. And so who knows what opportunities that you can develop just by showing up to journal club, having read the journal. It sounds like a small thing, right? By being present, by being intentional in how you navigate the world. People sometimes tap on you because they recognize who you are and how you hold space. So in doing all of this, even before you're in a relationship, just being prepared, being authentic, knowing what your purpose is, that allows others to find grace in you to take you on.
I really hear the fact that you don't need to be a purist and find people that align in the profession that you think you're going into. Because I think in medical school, especially in our first year, we hear such competing ideas. In one vein, you hear, take your time, explore. You have all this time to figure out what you want to do. And then in another vein, I sometimes hear, okay, there are these specialties that are super competitive, so you have to start researching this thing today. Or else if you didn't start it yesterday, you're behind. So sometimes those can be very hard to hear. And the reminder that everyone who you cross pathways has the opportunity to really help you in the future. And you never know what doors they might open, and you never know what you can learn from them. So that is a really important thing for our listeners to remember, because even myself, I find that I have some career ideas, but my interests are more broad than just the specialty that I think I'm getting into, and remind myself to explore, and that the people that are here in this institution can help us get to our final destination. The path might just look very different from what we initially imagined. We're coming to a close for our podcast, and I would just like to thank you both so much. Thank you so much, Lucy. Thank you so much, Ernesto, for sharing your thoughts today about how students can not only find mentorship, how they can maintain mentorship, and really what they can expect from their mentorship relationships, and also how to hold students accountable. So important. Listeners, reach out to your mentors. You have to. They want to hear from you. As we close up today, I have a final question for the both of you, and it's really the simple one. What might our listeners do to foster belonging for others here at UCSF? Ernesto, starting with you.
Well, thank you so much for hosting us, for allowing us this space. And thank you, Lucy. I've learned so much from you. I've been having the biggest smile throughout this because a lot of the experiences that have been shared here are things that I've seen, I've experienced. And so to be together is really a joy. So thank you. And belonging is really important to me. I have had times in UCSF where I feel like I really belong. And some of those spaces that have been shared, like SNMA, LMSA, those are spaces that have always given me a lot of safety. And one of the things that we've heard actually so far is about trust. I remember very early in medical school, I was studying with two other folks and I was like, I do not know how anyone knows all this information. And they turned to me and they said, no one does. And I was like, oh, you're right. It's not that everyone knows the information. It's that someone knows one little piece and they say that answer when they remember it. And the other person says a little piece and they say that answer. And to you, it looks like everyone knows everything. But really, no, everyone's struggling the same way. It's impossible to know all this information all at once. Some people describe it as the duck syndrome. The ducks in the water, they look like they're so peaceful and calm, going through the water waiting. But under the water, their feet are running so fast. And we only see what we see. But under the current, there's a lot of work being done. And by building these relationships among each other at UCSF, you start to understand, what are people doing? What's different from what you're doing? And that's where we start to build that sense of trust by building those dyads and that network of two people all around you and leaning on other people about this situation. Does that make sense to you? And having several people you could go ask that to, that's how we start to build that sense of belonging. And so for anyone who is feeling alone, I would recommend just going to talk to another person and another one. And eventually you'll find folks who have similar experiences to yours, and always look for those similarities and not the differences, because that's how we start to feel connected to each other.
I love this. I have to echo the smiles constantly. I wish there was a video of this going out, because my cheeks are almost hurting from all the smile and all the nodding. You both have brought such intentional purpose and presence today, and I feel enriched. I'm humbled by your light, by your brilliance, and for the space that we are able to create today. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity. To answer the question about how can we foster belonging for others at UCSF, I want to say it starts with you being able to be yourself and live authentically. By being able to live the life that makes you feel like you are yourself, you're giving other people permission to do the same as well. And I think it's so important to appreciate the fact that if we can't be who we are supposed to be, if we can't be ourselves, others will not be able to do the same thing as well. There is a space for all of us to be who we are. I think authenticity and living your life, how you feel most comfortable, is so key. And being able to be vulnerable about the struggles that we're having, by allowing our vulnerability, our struggles, our challenges to come to the forefront, we allow others to get courage to be able to fight through their adversity and their obstacles. And I think really importantly, kindness. We live in a world where it can sometimes feel so isolating and so unkind. Simple acts of niceness and kindness goes a long way. You're in medical school already. You can all be stars. There's no need to try to fight each other for success. And in being kind to each other, we actually allow all of us to succeed. And so I think those are some of the elements that I would share about try to foster inclusivity and belonging here at UCSF.
Thank you so much, the both of you. I know that I learned a lot in our conversation. I hope that our listeners gained as much as I did, as much as we all did today in this conversation. In conclusion, today we've learned about successful mentoring relationships through creating our mentorship team. We've learned about identifying qualities of a good mentor-mentee relationship and how to make the most of a mentoring conversation. Thank you all for joining us in our episode, and please don't forget to tune in to other episodes in this series on medical student success. Have a good day to you all.
Thank you for listening to The Bridge, and please look for more episodes in our series. The Bridge is brought to you by the UCSF Academy of Medical Educators Innovations for Funding in Education program. Our hosts are Alvin Glanga and Dr. Nakai Corral. Our production staff are Dr. Eric Hung and Valerie Jones. Our sound engineer is John Oliver. Our music is by Duke Q. Wax Roof, Mabanwa, and Les Imprimes, courtesy of Big Crown Records.